My name is Manarin. I teach in the departments of English and General Education, and I was a 2009 Nexen Scholar. Probably in around 2008, I had done some curricular work for my department, and we were just asking students on a survey how confident they felt with reading and writing. And I was really surprised to discover that while students were not very confident about their writing, which I expected, they were extremely confident about their reading skills. And that just didn't match my experience or my colleagues' experience with these students in the first year classes. So my first Nexen project was to look at how students read and also whether or not they were finding those strategies worked for them. So what I did over the course of a first year composition class was have them do a series of reading logs, I called them, where they just sort of described how they went about reading a text. And then I also collected their final essays and their analysis for the course. And what I discovered was that students tended to be relying on the same repertoire of strategies regardless of what type of work they were reading. So a strategy that might work really well for a personal essay, they were trying to use that same strategy when they were reading maybe a chapter from a textbook or a more technical piece. And so they felt that they were reading effectively because they were doing things that had been rewarded in the past, but they weren't necessarily adjusting their strategies for the types of reading we were asking them to do. So I rewrote my course entirely. I spend a lot more time now talking about different reading strategies. I practice reading strategies with the students, and just having them write about what type of reading strategies they were using turned out to be a really good pedagogical method to get them just aware of it. Some of the students claim that it changed how they read in other classes. I don't expect that they continued writing about how they read in other classes, but at least it brought some awareness. I think that first Nexen project really changed my approach to all of my classes, whether or not I'm doing a Scholarship of Teaching and Learning project in them. So the Nexen project really made me examine my assumptions about the students and what they could and couldn't do, my assumptions about my role as an instructor and about assessment, my assumptions about my discipline. So from that first project, I've really gone on to change my teaching dramatically. I am so much more explicit now about my expectations. I am so much more interested in my students. I mean, I was interested in them before, but through my lens, whereas now when they're doing things or struggling with particular concepts, I'm also trying to see what brought them to that point. So it's really a matter for me now of trying to unpack the assumptions that I bring to the class and that they bring to the class every time. So I think students benefit tremendously when they are in a well-designed SoTL study, because it brings a level of attention to what they're doing as learning that they don't necessarily get all the time. So, and certainly I was like this as a student. My main concern was getting that course, to get that grade, to get one step closer to my goal at the end. And a lot of times I wasn't really paying attention to what was being taught beyond the content level. And so with the SoTL and the reflective writing that I've been having them do in a number of different projects, it's really helped me understand where they are. I think it's really helped them understand where they are. And so I think they're able to see progress in a way that's not purely reflected through the grades. So if I had a student who took a class with me before I started doing Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, and then came back and took another class now, I hope that they would say that they found the second one much more engaging. I know that they would say that the assessment is really different, that I have focused much less on my delivery of content and much more on their ideas about the content. And especially if they were to take something where I was working with the undergraduate research experience, I think they would probably find it a lot more frustrating. Because when you're having students learn how to do original undergraduate research, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of risk on their part. And then at a certain point in the term, probably week 12 or 13, you see the pieces start to come together, and the excitement when they realize that they actually are contributing to knowledge rather than just writing yet another research paper about symbolism in Jane Eyre. Since the Nexen Scholars Program, I've gone on to do a couple different Scholarship of Teaching and Learning projects. The big one that is currently with Indiana University Press as a book is an examination of critical reading across our general education foundation courses. So that was a collaborative project. I, with 3 other instructors, looked at how our students read in these really different first-year classes. One was in scientific literacy, one was a course on genocide, one was a course about communities and societies, and then I was working with the critical writing and reading course. And so we looked at how our students were reading across the first-year experience, essentially, and came up with a lot of really interesting information about that. And as I mentioned, that's gone forward to Indiana University Press as a book, which we hope will come out next year. I think one of the big takeaways for us with that particular project was how important critical reading is to our ideals of education and how marginal it is to our actual practice. And so all 4 of us were shocked at how well students could do with remarkably little reading of the type we were hoping for. And that's because we were asking for the wrong things in our assessment practices. So that project, I think, has really changed the way all 4 of us teach our courses. And I think it will probably change, hopefully, when people read the book. I'm hoping it'll change how other people teach their courses too. For me, one of the big takeaways from that was thinking about the research paper and what I was hoping students would get out of a research paper. And since then, I have shifted my focus from how students read to more why they would read. When I started in 2009 with the Nexen program, I had imagined that this would be an interesting sideline, almost. I was still a disciplinary researcher. And what I discovered was something that made all parts of my academic life come together. So my interest in teaching, my love of scholarship, my desire to serve the institution and my students in a way that I think is meaningful, came together with the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. So I would say to someone who is starting or who is thinking about starting that it can be extremely frustrating and it can be very frightening learning a new way of thinking about students. And it can be hard learning, because I'm from a humanities background, it can be hard learning some of the social science methods, but it is so worth it. And it is a way of bringing together what's sometimes sort of seen as different silos, so that I feel like I'm making a difference. I'm making a difference at Mount Royal, and I'm making a difference in the broader community. The Nexen Scholars Program has enabled us to build a community of scholarship of teaching and learning here on campus. And I talk about this a little bit in one of my pieces about it being a collaboration broker. So the Nexen Scholars Program takes people who don't know anything about the scholarship of teaching and learning and provides them with a structured introduction to it. But more than that, it offers the opportunities for individuals to make connections and to do the type of collaborative scholarship that can really have an impact beyond the individual classroom. Most of my collaborative projects have been sparked by working with people who also went through the Nexen program.